Welcome to The Culture. We rest at the pulse of the community, providing all things news, music, fashion, events, and everything that we talk about in between. It's a lifestyle. We are The Culture. Hi, and welcome to another edition of The Culture. Joining us today is Dr. Steve Gallen. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Jessica. As always, it's a pleasure to be at home on the culture. Want to continue to support this platform, but also continue to support the efforts that you're doing here at the local, state, and national level. So, continuous accolades, continuous salute to you and your team for staying at the forefront of communication, collaboration, and the culture.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gallen. Now, before we start talking about, the kids have gone back to school, I wanted to just touch base with you for a moment. Since the last time we talked, you've been doing some things with your documentary and your books. Just give us a brief update of where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. We released part two of Light Found in the Dark, the life story of Dr. Steve Gallen III, that provides an opportunity for individuals to really see the journey that God has provided me to take. The first part, obviously entitled The Zone, dealt with my growing up in Liberty City, specifically in an area called The Zone, and that takes me from childhood through high school and into college. Part two really provided a firsthand look at my career, starting out as a classroom teacher through my transition out of Dade County Public Schools, where I ironically retired at the age of 38 to become a superintendent. In the process right now of completing production of part three, which is entitled The Fall. That speaks to my experience in New Jersey as a superintendent, the successes that we had, but also the challenges that we faced. And the documentary will culminate with part four, which is called The Phoenix, which speaks to the 2016 campaign and my subsequent election to represent District 1 on the school board, of which I've been tremendously blessed and honored to do so for the past 5 years.
Awesome. Keep us in the loop on that. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in the thralls of school opening. Please tell us how it's going.
Each year, we make a joke about this, those of us who've labored in education, specifically in public education, whether teachers, principals, administrators. Each year, we make the statement, this has been the best opening ever. So, once again, we have that particular statement that this has been the best opening ever. We had a few bumps and bruises along the way with some issues relative to HVAC. I know in my district, I had a school that had some challenges. We also have some challenges throughout the county, in fact, relative to the provision of mathematics textbooks. This is not a function of the schools. This is a function not even of the district, but quite frankly, this is a function of the process that evolved relative to the adoption of textbooks. You know, there was a very broad narrative at the state level, not simply about health textbooks, but textbooks across the board. So the delayed adoption led to the delayed purchase and procurement, and obviously the delayed delivery to some schools. But schools are receiving books as we speak. I visited 5 schools on yesterday, and I can tell you at each and every school, books were actually being delivered and unpacked. So that was a slight delay that we faced. But overall, very, very excited about the work that our principals, our teachers, our custodians, our food service workers, our bus drivers. We didn't have any narratives relative to transportation this year. So we're very excited because we know that transportation has beleaguered not only Miami-Dade County, but specifically other districts around the state and country. But we're very, very proud of the work that our bus drivers do to get our students who are transported to school on time and most importantly, safe. So all of those areas were clicking on all cylinders. And again, this is a testament to everybody, our parents, our family members, our superintendent, and absolutely the leadership of our board to make sure that our schools have opened very successfully, but most importantly, opened very safely. And we're very proud that we're off to a great start this year.
Awesome. Now, I know that you mentioned textbooks. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this because I saw you nationally speaking about it. Tell us, where did we land with health and human development, the issue about about textbooks and
Yes,
the
obviously
course.
that was a significant conundrum that the board was in. The initial decision back in April was to adopt. There was a subsequent vote not to adopt. And then we had a special meeting in which, under the leadership of our chair, Ms. Hampman, we reviewed that to ensure that we're in compliance with the state requirements for those particular standards. Again, we're talking about a textbook, but ultimately we're talking about standards that have to be taught to students. We're talking about, in some cases, parents having a right to be involved and engaged in their child's education. And in some cases, parents represent they want to defend, but we can't do it at the expense of denying other children. So in this particular case, we've always had the opt-out provision regarding textbooks and materials, specifically as it relates to health and reproduction. And that opt-out provision is much more pronounced. So we did take some additional steps that actually, Jessica, exceed what is required by the state. And we did land at a good place. And so those books were approved by the board. Those materials are available and accessible to students from Florida City to County Line Road. And again, those parents who want to elect to have their students not have access to those materials still have that right to do so.
And we talked about this in the pre-show, but I remember in 2020 when you came on the culture and you talked to us about in envisioning this provision that you wanted to be made for students to be able to have meals despite the fact that they weren't in school. And then we see now here in 2022, 2023, this school year, parents are ecstatic about the fact that funding has come and free lunches, free breakfast for the students. Tell us about how did that come about, and just congratulations on it, because it in this downward economy, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So we thank you all for it. But how did it come about?
Yes, this obviously is an extension of the work that was initiated by the board. I was very, very proud to lead that particular charge. And quite frankly, not actually in 2020, it was approximately around 2017. Actually, board item agenda H12, provision of meals for children during mandated emergency school closures. That was an item that I proffered on the heels of Hurricane Katrina, where we had our schools shuttered north of 10 days, in excess of 10 days. And we understood and I advocated for the fact that many of our children in a district with about 75% of the students on free or reduced lunch, schools provide nourishing meals. They provide healthy provisions, whether it's breakfast, lunch, and a snack, or all three. And for 11 days, we had our schools shuttered, and many of our students and our families were deprived. Following that particular challenge, I proffered the item in 2017 that anytime we do a mandated school closure, the Miami-Dade County Public Schools will make provisions for their students. I was very honored and humbled that they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. That effort obviously had been duplicated around the state and quite frankly around the nation. And we've seen that has become the norm to feed our students, specifically in urban centers that have challenges economically. And there has been no more challenging set of circumstances than the pandemic. So we're very, very fortunate with the revenue that we've received from the federal government, the support that we receive from the state, but specifically the school lunch program comes from the federal government. This year, we're very honored and very proud to be able to offer free breakfast and lunch for all of our students in Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Also, with the school system, there's been a lot of discussion about the ownership of land. Can you please tell us where we are with that and explain to some of our viewers who may not be up to speed on it?
Yeah, the most significant narrative that we have, quite frankly, in Dade County, but around the country, is the housing crisis. We're in the thick of the political season, the election season. Clearly, housing affordability is at the forefront of all platforms, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. And because it does pose particular challenges for our residents. Affordability, housing affordability is a crisis in Miami-Dade County, as it is in many centers throughout the country and obviously throughout the state. but Miami-Dade County has been identified nationally as one of the most cost prohibitive housing markets in the nation, meaning we are up there with New York and LA in terms of housing affordability. When you look at the income equity, when you look at the income status of our residents, housing is not affordable. So most recently, local municipalities, private developers have really partnered to explore ways by which they can address housing affordability through various developments. As a part of those explorations, the Miami-Dade County Public Schools has been introduced in the conversation outside of Miami-Dade County Public Schools involvement to some extent, and in some cases. Yes, we've had a few projects in which we partner with maybe one or two developers that allows us to maintain our educational mission, meaning if we provide a partnership, it's called a triple P, public-private partnership. If we enter into a partnership, it serves our mission of providing for classroom space, i.e. new schools. So we have land, they have land, we join together, provide new schools, they provide housing opportunities, and everybody is involved in a win-win situation. Most recently, however, there have been a number of explorations that have referenced the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, many well-intended, but obviously we have to operate and we have to respond within the four corners of our policy position and our core mission. That is non-negotiable. Our policy position will be the guardrails by which we consider and explore such partnerships, but they have to be preceded by a commitment, an unwavering commitment to our core mission, which is the education of our students in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools community. Listen, it belongs to the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, but it was purchased with taxpayers' dollars. So we have to be very vigilant, we have to be very transparent, and we have to be very intentional and prudent and pragmatic, and all of those things that speak to us being good fiduciaries of the property that is owned by the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, purchased with taxpayer funds, but acquired with one core mission, and that is to educate children. If there is any deviation, as I said, if and when the board decides to further explore this, we must do so with our policy positions at the forefront, with state statutes guiding us, and with an eye towards clear transparency and equity relative to our fiduciary responsibility.
Okay. I think that kind of helped a lot of people to be able to understand what the situation is. Now, even on the national front, I was watching Lester Holt. They're talking about a national teacher shortage, and then some other legislation has gone into works where they're looking at different ways of providing teacher certifications. I've asked my kids when they came home, did you have a substitute? Who's in your classroom, etc. Where is the school board on this national teacher shortage? Is this something that is affecting us locally?
Absolutely. This, as you indicated, the school board is not immune to the challenges relative to the teacher shortage that you've indicated. It's not simply at the state level, but it's at a national level. Our governor has responded with some initiatives to allow, for example, military veterans and the spouses of military veterans to pursue alternate certification tracks. Most recently, law enforcement and first responders have also been identified as potential candidates for teaching. So a lot of innovative explorations are taking place because there's clear recognition that we do not have enough teachers to fill our classrooms. This is a function of the colleges of education, but more importantly, it's a function of how people view education as a pathway for a career in a lifelong of prosperity, success, and contribution. Listen, it was never the profession that any of us had gone into to get rich. I'm an educational purist, Jessica. What does that mean? I left high school to go to FAMU because we brag differently. I went to FAMU to become a teacher. So I went to become a teacher. I majored in English education. I did the field study. I did an internship at Rickards High School in Tallahassee. I came back to start my career. So I am an educational purist. Times are different. But I went into the profession knowing that I was not going to get rich as a teacher. God has blessed me to find other means by which my career was able to elevate, and I made very, very sound investments with whatever I had. But teaching is not a profession by which people go into for the money. But we need to do a better job of, number one, recruiting teachers, retaining teachers, and rewarding teachers. And that reward cannot simply be a pat on the back. We need to enhance their pocketbooks. So again, our district is now approaching the second iteration of our referendum. That would be an opportunity for us to enhance teacher compensation here at the local level and to augment what is not done at the state level. The state has made some tremendous improvements, but we have to do better because we still rank at the bottom across the nation. And again, our referendum will also provide an opportunity for us to continue to enhance our safety and security strategies at the school and keep all of our children and employees safe.
And is there any room where you think you may be considering virtual teachers? I saw that was something that was happening in other states. And actually, there are teachers here in Florida that are teaching classrooms virtually in other states. Is that something that's physical? The students are physically in the classroom and the teacher is in another state. Is that something that you all have looked at?
Well, you have in Florida right now, we have the Florida Virtual School program. So it's pretty discrete, it's pretty specific. It's not a blended model that you're kind of referencing, but to some extent that we can, through appropriate provision for funding. It becomes a funding issue. What we realized in the height of the pandemic, when the districts were shuttered and we were virtual, the state of Florida provided that flexibility without impacting funding. That flexibility is not being provided at this time. You have to be physically in a school, in a desk, in a classroom, in front of a teacher to be fully funded. So I would anticipate that with some of the prices that we face outside of Florida virtual, if the state provides an opportunity for us to, as a district, look at some alternate models, I'm sure we would consider that. But I will say that being an educational purist that I am, there is no substitute from a living, breathing person in the front of a student in a classroom, especially students who have academic challenges and are underserved.
And to all of you, thank you for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Gallen, for coming by. Come and join us tonight at 6 p.m. right here for another edition of My Two Cents. Grab a drink, get ready for the shenanigans. We're back. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Look forward to our next conversation. And congratulations and continued success and blessings for all that you do.
Thank you.
The Culture is produced and owned by the Culture Media Group and cannot be reproduced or broadcast without written consent. All rights reserved 2022.